Hello, everyone, and welcome to a discussions QuickCast. Today, I have John from Boid, the decentralized computing platform on EOS. John has been doing a lot of stuff lately, including some things to help combat the coronavirus. So, I wanted to bring him on to shine a spotlight on some of the work he's doing. And welcome on the show, John.
Hi, Jack. Thanks for having me. I guess the most recent thing that everyone has heard about is the fee calculation API proposal.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the idea behind that was basically that I saw some issues with the way that Scatter and other EOS wallets work, and it's kind of frustrating to me
Mm.
because I see what kind of started it for me was I saw some YouTuber that was complaining that they could not use Tribe
Mhm.
because they didn't have enough staked EOS. And I explained to them that they just need to purchase like zero point 0.1 EOS worth of Rex
Yeah.
rental and they'd be fine. And they said, well, I'm staked to Rex. I have 5 EOS staked to Rex and I'm still can't transact. I'm like, no, you don't need
Mm.
a stake to Rex. You need to buy, and it's just like no one should have to worry about that, right? So that's the kind of thing that the wallet should handle for the user. And this is what people have come to expect from like Bitcoin wallets that
Yeah.
will automatically calculate
Yeah.
the pricing of your transaction. So,
Yeah. I know for a fact that if you're like a hardcore Ethereum user, you could sort of calculate your own fees. I think it's the same on Bitcoin as well. And so, yeah, so I think some people kind of misunderstood because it's been phrased as a proposal. Some people think it's kind of a system-wide change, but that's not, right? That's not what this is.
no, it, it's just another smart contract that could be implemented by wallets and dApps
Hmm.
to improve the user experience, but it doesn't need to be integrated at the system level.
Hmm. Yeah, so okay, so this is something that the wallets should be taking on. I think this is pretty common sense in terms of wallets uh, letting the users to kind of perform these resource purchases, to kind of get their transaction through. And I agree with you. Like the average user shouldn't have to worry about getting Rex and renting CPU. That is very very complicated.
Yeah, the story has been that, oh well, the dApps will handle the resources for the users,
Yeah.
but from running a dApp, I can tell you it's a lot more. It makes everything a lot more complicated if you have to worry about that. And larger dApps will be able to do that, but you can't just assume that every dApp is going to handle that. And also, it doesn't solve the problem of just a user just casually trying to send coins from inside Scatter, for example, which doesn't have any kind of automatic resource allocation functionality. It doesn't even have any built-in way to interact with Rex as well. So just to do a basic transaction for someone that doesn't have much EOS staked is pretty complex as is.
Yeah, so I want to ask you, like, well, when you were making this proposal, you were kind of looking at from the perspective of Boy and how Boy users are interacting with your application. So how would this make using Boy a lot easier?
I mean, it would really more control to the Boid interface because right now we pretty much handle everything for the user. We pay for all resources,
Mhm.
claim, and things like that. We just really require the bare minimum from them, and we're one of the first applications to implement gray mass fuel,
Mhm.
which is a special endpoint and an integration in your dApp that allows gray mass to provide free CPU to. Well, I found that it made everything a lot more complex, and it also broke the functionality of the site for some wallets. So
Mhm.
those issues will be solved in the future, but it's always going to be more complicated for the dApp to. You just don't have to do it. So
I see, I see. Well, I mean, realistically, how many of the wallets or the any of the wallets do you see taking up this proposal anytime soon?
Um, well, we're looking for a sponsor to fund the development of the
Okay, okay.
solution because it could turn into a pretty in-depth technical feat to implement everything. But I think it can be broken down into parts and build each part. And I think that because it allows like a sponsor to sponsor resources for a user in exchange for some ad space, I think there's a market there. So I think it would be worth it to have a sponsor that would be promoted within whatever wallets or dApps implement this functionality.
So the other thing that there's been some big changes to how the Boy economics works. Do you want to give us a rundown on what's going on with that?
It's not really. I wouldn't. Well, it is a big change, like in the short term, but it's kind of something that has been in the works for over nearly a year now. We've been talking about it and making changes,
Yeah.
but we finally have a new kind of inflation, like a recursive inflation formula, which basically looks at historical inflation of the network and calculates what it should be in the future based on some target data.
Yeah.
So now we've kind of finalized the formula as part of the new white paper, and we've been running the formula on the network that's live. And in order to kind of get the network in line with our inflation targets, we submitted a proposal to the users to vote for how they would like to fit with those inflation targets.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's still a few months of adjustment, in order to reach that target. And then once we reach that target, then the formulas will kind of take over.
Gotcha. So you're kind of reducing inflation in the short run, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how has the community reacted to that so far?
It's been mixed. People like the reduced inflation, but also they don't like it if that negatively affects how much they are able to claim when they run the claim action. And I mean, it's kind of frustrating to me because we've been talking about it and working through the different options for a while. And I get feedback from some users, and then we implement the change, and then I get feedback from other users kind of after the fact. And I tell them like, well, you need to participate more and let your opinion be known, before things happen, because if you just bring things up retroactively, then it's not we can't really act on it. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think, but that's the thing people are learning. We see more and more participation and opinions, and sometimes you just have to like dangle a carrot and give them some incentive to speak up and let us know what they think, and put a little bit of time, because I mean we put a lot of time into putting these numbers together.
Yeah.
So it does take some time to sit down and understand what these numbers mean and come up with potential alternatives. So
Mhm.
we try to provide some incentive for people to spend their time and do that and give us their opinion.
So another project you got involved in is this Chronos thing. So what is it and why is Boy part of it?
Yeah, Chronos is actually very cool. It's an alternative to deferred transactions.
Oh, okay.
So you might not know that deferred transactions have been deprecated by Block One. They're not supporting it. It'd probably be removed from future versions of EOS.
Yeah.
Deferred transaction basically lets you specify that some transaction should take place in the future.
Yeah.
The problem is that you don't have a guarantee that it's going to take place.
Mhm.
So you have to build solutions to account for that. And it also makes the software a lot more complex because it has to account for these deferred transactions. It just kind of opens a whole can of worms.
Mhm.
And also it's because you have to basically trust the block producer to execute that transaction in the future.
Right.
And if they don't, you can't do anything about it. So Chronos is basically a solution. And what it does is you schedule some job to happen in the future, and a you put a bounty on it. Basically, you put like a gas fee on it. And
Mhm.
then once that time is reached in the future, any account on the network can then execute that action in order to receive that reward.
Oh,
So
wow.
this is interesting because you don't have to trust the block producers to run the job anymore. Anyone can run the job. You could run the job yourself if you're running the software to monitor and execute it. So basically, you don't have a guarantee that it's going to be run, but you have a very high level of certainty, and you can actually run it yourself as well. So
Hmm.
this allows you to kind of build things where you have a higher level of certainty that you can do deferred transactions, and also you can do like recursive deferred transactions. So you can use Chronos to schedule a job to happen in the future, and when that job happens, that job schedules itself again in the future, and it just keeps rescheduling itself. So what we did, and I've been working with the creator of Chronos, who is Pieces and Bits, who's actually the one of the main devs behind EOStack, and he built smart contracts and UI stuff. He's very capable, and he kind of has architected this whole system. And I kind of encouraged him to launch it on mainnet so that we could use it for Boid. I wanted to, show that it works using Boid
Hmm.
as a test case. So basically, what I did was I registered once we deployed it on mainnet. I used a smart contract to register all Boid users for auto claiming every day, which is how we used to automatically claim user profits every day, but we started doing it weekly because of the CPU crunch. But now I can pay like a small amount of Boid tokens to provide like auto claim as a service on a daily basis,
Hmm.
and I don't have to worry about managing CPU. And the CPU needs are spread across many different miners that are running the Chronos software and watching these jobs and run them. So for each, Chronos miner, it's a relatively small amount of CPU that they need in order to participate. So it really, I mean, it works flawlessly. We've been running it for over a week now,
Hmm.
and yeah, we have over 500 jobs running per day, and yeah, it works flawlessly.
Very cool. Yeah, I remember deferred transaction was depreciated, and I thought that was one of the coolest feature of EOS. So I was a little saddened that it was deprecated, but seeing someone else coming along and pick it up with a different economic model, that's very interesting. And kudos for you for supporting the project. Okay, so let's move on to the biggest story of the day. Everyone's talking about it, and that's the coronavirus. And everyone, it's a very serious thing that's happened in the world, and everyone's trying to contribute a little bit to combat this infectious disease. And Boy is actually jumping into the fray. So, John, what have you been cooking up, and what's how are we gonna defeat the coronavirus with Boy?
Sure. Yeah, this is a kind of a partnership alliance between Boyd and Telos. So
Mm.
we started a Boyd team on Folding at Home, and Folding at Home is a distributed science project
Yeah.
that's been around for a very long time, and they just recently have implemented the COVID-19 research work units for people to run,
Yeah.
and they've been getting attention from NVIDIA and a few other projects. And I looked into implementing their tech inside the Boyd app actually, but we're
Mm.
not quite there yet. So we're encouraging users to download Folding at Home and join the Boyd team. And if you use your Telos username as your account name on Folding at Home, then you can earn some Telos and some Boyd for your participation. And this is not like part of Boyd officially. It's just kind of
Mm.
a side promotion, but maybe in the future it'll be more integrated.
So if you're not, incentivized by the humanitarian cause, at least you'd be incentivized by the extra Boy token
Yeah.
support this cause. So thanks again, John, for coming on. It was a nice chat. You've been doing a lot. So I just want to shine a spotlight on what you've been doing. And if you want to check out everything Boy's been up to, make sure you check out their social media account as well as their tag on discussions.app. So thank you again for coming on, John.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for listening to the very end of the Discussions QuickCast. If you're still here, leave a comment down below on discussions. Say, Boy is helping coronavirus research, and I'll drop you some tips as a thank you for listening to the very end. See you guys.